you guys for having me at JACC. Like Amara said, I was here almost 20 years ago in Fresno. And that's the time I talk from JACC to JACC. And first, like I said, I want to start with a thank you for allowing me to be here. I've spoken in a variety of different places. I was at South by Southwest and gave a panel there. I missed a flight to the conference in San Diego and did a keynote on the plane. Did anyone there? I know it was kind of awkward. I hope it was okay. Thank you. But I'm actually really nervous right now. I give talks a lot. I'm actually really nervous right now. So 18 years ago, I was here. And I participated in the competition. And my category was to cover the Fresno softball team. And I hustled the best I could. I'd been doing journalism for about a semester. And they had a mock press conference after the softball game. And in the press conference, they gave out this quote by Freddy Krueger. One of the players said, this other team was like Freddy Krueger from the Nightmare of Elm Street. And I was like, oh, that's a good quote. But I didn't write that quote down exactly right. So when they submitted my stuff, I was like, dang, I wish I could have got that quote. And they announced the winner of that category, and it was the winner that was the only one with that freaking quote. That was the one that won it. But I thought, okay, I'm cool, it's all right. When in doubt, leave it out. I believe in that. So I'm not bitter about it. So a couple of the things I want to start before we fully start is I'm apologizing in advance. As you even noticed earlier, I started to choke up. I'm going to be choking up a lot. This is a talk that I cannot give anywhere else. No one would understand. No one knows. It's real talk. And I know this is cheesy, but get ready for the field. It's coming from me. I'm going to be doing this. I'm going to be doing this. I'm not lying. This is intense for me. I swear to God, I've lost count of how many talks I've given. This one is different. And I expect some of these reactions from you guys. All right? I'm not a fan of Dawson Creek. I never watched the show, but I'm a fan of these animated GIFs. All right. So some background on me. I prepared for this talk more than any other talk that I've given. Again, I'm not kidding. I looked up and I found my first clip book from Pierce College. This is me in 1996. Real talk, y'all. This is the first person column I wrote about being afraid of public speaking. I took speech class 3 times at Pierce until I finally passed it. Okay? It's a big deal for me to be here. I'm not nervous anymore when I give a talk, but this one is different, as I keep repeating. But what was kind of rad is when I went through the clips, and they were really bad. They were really bad. The first time I went to a journalism conference where there was a recruiter there, I sat down. First recruiter, I brought out my clip book, I sat down, I pushed it in, and I'm like, all right, I'm ready for this. I've been preparing for this. The guy flips through my book, doesn't say anything, gives it back to me, gets out of his chair, walks around the table, picks me up, and sends me along my way without saying one word. Lucky for him, I don't remember who he is because I punched him in the neck the moment I see him. But I looked at that clip, so I'm not going to lie, that was pretty bad writing. I did find this. In 1996, I wrote that Pierce College is getting the internet. And it is so bad. It is so bad, you guys. I say surf in quotes, the net, the World Wide Web, electronic mail, also known as email. Ridiculous. Ridiculous. So, so this, like I said, is a talk that I couldn't give anywhere else. And I'm really sorry. Really, really sorry. In addition to the tears that are going to come up and you're going to be judging me and laughing at me, and haters, please don't hate. But I'm going to work at a deficit. This is real talk. I'm going to start with an insult. Let me drink some water as that kind of ponders there for a little bit. So I grew up in the Valley, a block away from CSUN. My brother went to Crespi High School, which is like a private boys' school. I don't remember it. I went to a Catholic school and ended up going to Alameda High School for 1 year. But before I went to that school, we got free tickets. I got tickets to see an Alameda versus Crespi High School football game. It was held at Pierce College. Here comes the insult. Don't judge me, I'm being real. I remember around halftime looking around campus going like, God, I hope I don't end up here. So here's what happened. Less than a year later, my parents split up, and my mom and my brother and my sister moved down to El Salvador. Sabi! I finished high school down in El Salvador. I technically had a journalism class my senior year. We never put out any publication, but I stumbled on a story, and I ended up drinking a lot with the teacher. So that was kind of like journalism. And when I was about to graduate, I didn't know what I was going to do with my life. And my brother was like, well, you like drawing. Why do you do drafting? Does anyone know what drafting is? Because I don't know what that is. I still don't know what that is. And for some reason, maybe I had the Final Four. When I cared about sports, I thought Purdue. I'm going to do drafting at Purdue. Why not? So when I got my diploma and I walked the stage, they announced Robert Hernandez was going to be majoring in drafting at Purdue University. I'm like, yeah, I don't know what that means, but I'm out of here. Going back north. What had happened was, when I got on the plane with my dad, who was still in LA, the plane started to take off. My dad passed away a couple years ago, so I never got to ask him this question. But as the plane took off, he reached into his pocket and gave me a letter, a rejection letter from Purdue. Oh, snap, there goes my plan. It wasn't a very good one, but there it goes. Turned out that they didn't think I spoke English. I had to take the TOEFL, whatever. So, okay, what am I going to do now? I'm stuck in LA with my dad, smart man for doing that. My mom was amazingly smart for moving us down to El Salvador, but what am I going to do with my life? And somehow, now that I'm back, life, karma is a bitch, because Pierce College came calling, and I thought, okay, I'm going to this school. And I had this master plan. They had the fast track program. Do they still have that? The school still have the fast track program? What is it called? Base? Pace. So it was called the fast track program. And it was 2 years and you're out. You transfer on to another university. And you had to take an exam for it. So I thought, okay, let's try this out. I'm going to take this exam. I do the best I can, but I never hear back from them. I'm like, I gotta go to school, right? So I drive up to the admissions office, and I walk in there. I'm like, hi, I'm Robert Hernandez. I applied for the fast track program. I never heard back. This guy from the counter is like, oh, no problem. Let me look you up. And he calls up. He's like, oh, I have your results right here. You did really great in the writing part. This is a made-up admissions office. You did a really great on the writing part. So take that, folks. I cuss too, so I hope no one gets offended. So I did great in the writing part, but not so good in the math. I didn't make enough for the math. And as my brain starts going like, Jesus, God, what's my next plan? What am I going to do? I start to go into a mental downward spiral, and the guy says, but don't worry now, you're in. I break down every time I tell this story. Some stranger changed my life. Why? I don't know. It's crazy to me. Crazy. This guy changed my grade in this computer at the school that I was dissing, and it changed my fucking life. This man also changed my life. Mr. O'Neill, where are you? In the back. I walked into Mr. O'Neill's class. I needed an elective. I had the elective in high school for journalism, and I thought, hey, maybe I'll drink with the professor. We'll see how this goes. And I didn't suck at it. I literally were the words out of my mouth. I'm like, I think I can do this thing. It was like mass comm, something like that. And then I got into the newsroom, and I was home. I walked into the newsroom and found the most wittiest, smartest, socially awkward individuals ever. My people, my tribe. I'm a lucky son of a bitch. All these people here changed my life in ways I cannot even communicate. Just amazing individuals. I ended up going to San Francisco State. Why? Because I wanted to get the hell out of LA. No offense to LA, I'm back. But I looked at the back of the CSU card and I thought, which CSU school teaches journalism? San Francisco, okay. Fresno, they didn't accept me, I'm so bitter. And another one. And San Francisco State was the one that accepted me, the furthest from LA. And I took off. Just amazing people. There are more that I can't even fit on there, but they changed my life. From Erna Smith, who is my colleague at USC right now. She was my professor at SF State. Bob Kreider, who was my first editor at my Yakima Herald Republic internship. Amazing people. Another O'Neill, John O'Neill, I thought he was a figment of my imagination. I went to an NHJ conference. Because of Pierce College, I got introduced to NHJ. Anyone a member of NHJ? If you're Latino, join that. There's the alphabet soup of journalism organizations. Apply. Deadlines are coming up. If you're interested in digital, apply for the Online News Association. There are these organizations, just like JACC, trying to help you improve and save journalism often from itself. All these people changed my life, and I'm just so fortunate. And then a lot of stuff happened in between. And the truth is, I didn't know how long this talk was going to be. I didn't time it at all. And I'm going much faster than I thought. But a lot of stuff happened in between. I had my first internship in Yakima. After striking out conference after conference, I was having a young mental breakdown of like, why can't I get an internship? I'm passionate. I care about journalism. I want in. Why won't you let me in? And that year, I got an internship at the Yakima Herald Republic. Anyone know where Yakima is? Really? Yes. I didn't. So I rolled up in my Burbank, which was a piece of junk, poor man's Cadillac car, from San Francisco, the city, to Central Washington, an ag town. 80% of the folks there were from Michoacan, Mexico. The population was dominant Mexican. The newspaper there, no one spoke Spanish, but they cared about the community. So what they did was they hired a translator to go with reporters so they can do stories about the community. And they found out I spoke Spanish. So I went with one of the reporters to go to a cherry harvest, and I was like, yeah, and I translated, and I was in the backseat of her car going back to the newsroom, and I was like, you think they'd let me work on the fields for a day and write about it? And she was like, yeah, you should totally do that. And I ended up doing that. I ran out of time. I wanted to scan that front page article that I did. I picked peaches for 2 days and worked on the story for 2 weeks. Has anyone ever picked peaches before? You have? Itchy. Shit cray. This is 100 degrees out under the sun, and you have to put on long sleeves so the peach fuzz doesn't get on your skin. You're climbing up a 12-foot ladder with a steel bucket strapped to your chest. This ladder is not like one of those nice ladders from Home Depot. This is a 3-legged stool ladder that if you don't line that stuff up, you've fallen over. And guess what happened to me? I fell over. And everyone, young and old, people, Latinos, working the fields, getting their hands black, laughed at me. And I'm like, it's okay, I didn't break anything. Apparently people have died from it. And I got to write a story about that. It was so awesome because after I worked the field and the day was done around 8 o'clock, they're like, hey, we're going to go play some volleyball. You want to come? I'm like, are you insane? I went home. I wandered into the newsroom, checked in with my editor, Bob, and I was like, I'm still alive. I fell down, but I'm okay. I'll see you guys tomorrow. And I went to sleep, and I slept for like 20 hours till I had to wake up again at 3 in the morning to get ready to be on the field by 5. Did that luckily just for one more day. And then spent 2 weeks reporting, working with a photographer, and to tell that story. Probably one of my favorite stories of all time. I worked for the Hearthstone Examiner in 1999. The paper was already sold and going to be tossed because the Hearst company bought the Chronicle, which at the time was family owned. I worked with Scrappy. There was no point for us to give a damn. We were sold. We were given away. We were already going to work for the Chronicle. Yet the crew that I worked with, we did the most innovative stuff even today. Really innovative digital storytelling. And that, for me, set the tone. Bob Kreider Kreiderized me at Yakima. Jesse Garnier taught me digital. Where the first day, or one of the first days, he told me, look, we do online journalism, not journalism online. And I'm like, what's the difference? And he's like, okay, there's art online and online art. Art online is like you take the photo of Mona Lisa and you put it on a website, because not all of us are going to make it over to the other side of the world and get to see this masterpiece. Really important, really, really important and useful. But online art is art made of the medium, right? That's the difference. I have a website. I'm writing as if I'm writing a newspaper article and putting it online. Really, really important. But what about the online journalism that is only made possible through digital and that type of storytelling? That's what I'm into. And so that's part of my bio now. I worked at SF Gate for a bit. At the time there, Kim Kamini, she's speaking with you guys tomorrow, I think, for photo. I don't think he remembers. We've been at conferences together. We were at Pointer over the summer. I don't think he remembers this. He was from the Examiner. We merged with the Chronicle. Him and Kathleen Hennessy came up to me and said, we have this idea. We want to put pictures with photos and put them online. I was like, that sounds rad. Let's go pitch this. Both our print and online bosses were like, no, that's never going to happen. No, we don't got the resources for that. We're on deadline. How are we going to pull that off? And at the time, my heart started to break the direction of journalism at that time. So what did I do? I fled to a third world country, developing country, and went back down to El Salvador. My now wife and I drove from San Francisco to El Salvador, where I ended up working for La Prensa Gráfica. And I was there. Once I got there, this guy George hired me, who should be on that list. I was running out of money. I still had my American bills. That car that I just drove down had car payments. And I went to La Prensa Gráfica, and this guy's like, what are you doing here? Usually we go the other direction. And I was like, I don't know. I'm young and we want to study abroad and I need a job. What do you got? And he hired me. Most of the folks paid who worked 80 hours, and I'm not kidding, like massive crazy hours, were paid about $200 a month. They paid me $2,000 a month. That's a lot. Not a lot with American bills. So we had some money saved up, and by the time 8 months later, our money was out. So we had to go back north because we had the car payment and student loans and all that good stuff. So I luckily ended up at the Seattle Times. I love that paper. It's family owned. We've had a rocky relationship here and there, but it's made out of really about passion and to serve the community. At the Seattle Times, I really came into my own, where all the things, all these people on that previous slide kept telling me in the corner, own a seat at the table, speak up, represent your community, all kind of came together. And that just really launched my career. I was a homepage editor. When I was there, I was like, I really want to do multimedia storytelling. I'm like, yeah, you totally will do that. Keep editing. I'm like, I'm a horrible speller. I'm breaking news. What am I going to do? And it worked out. I eventually became director of development for Seattle Times, where I ran a team of engineers and designers. And then I got contacted by USC. I put these icons on the bottom because this is, in addition to JACC, kind of the roots of where I started and where I am right now. Now I'm at USC. This is a university that I probably would have not made it into as a student. I'm not kidding. It's amazing to be there. I hope you guys can join me. I wish I had power to do that, but I have no influence whatsoever in that category. But they made me an offer I couldn't refuse, and I came back to LA. But I always remember my roots. The first day at USC in my office. I'm like, I'm going to go to the food court. And I wander over, and I'm talking to the woman in Spanish, ordering my food, and then I get a flashback that I did not remember. I walk back into my office, and I cry like a baby. The feels. My mom worked at a counter selling pizza at CSUN. I did not remember that until that first day. And I remembered when I was going to Pierce that the folks who worked with my mom were like, do it for us. I'm here for them. So I wrote a piece just for me to get it out of my system, to kind of remind myself and others, I did not do this alone. You are not doing it alone. Rob O'Neill and all your professors are here to help you. JACC are here to help you. I'm here to help you. So I wanted to be indulgent for the first part, and thank you so much for letting me get that out. It's a talk I could not give anywhere else. But here are some of the points that I want to share with you that I've learned along the way. Not too many. The first one I've learned, being on as a student, kind of bumbling along, clueless in my education, but being fortunate enough for someone to take care of me. Now being on the other side, I had a conversation today with a student who was like, I'm just so shy. I'm an introvert. What am I going to do? I'm like, you know what talk I'm doing today? I'm giving a keynote at this institution that saved my life, and I had to take speech class 3 times. You're going to be okay. Let the fear of deadline make you get out of your shell, because that's what saved me. I'm not going to get that name wrong, and I'm not going to miss deadline. I'm not going to get in trouble. So, first thing that I want you to know is to be proactive about your education. It does not matter what school you go to. It does not matter how awesome or not awesome your professor is. What matters is what you're doing with that opportunity to get educated, right? It doesn't matter if it's at USC or anywhere else. You have an opportunity to learn and to learn about the craft of journalism. And it doesn't matter about, I'm this J school and we're all digital and I'm this J school for long form. It does not matter. Remember why we do journalism. It's for the community. It's not for our egos. And how do you prepare yourself to tell the story of the community? It's your education. So you hijack the resources, a lot or a little. It doesn't matter the amount of resources, but you hijack that so you and your friends can do journalism in the name of your community. My talk is for that kid, because that kid was in the back corner. I know that kid is here. Hijack your stuff. Lesson number 2. I heard a talk by Robert Krulwich. Anyone know who Robert Krulwich is? Right? Science reporter, co-host of... I'm going to clap with you. Don't worry. I got you. I got you. He gave a commencement speech in 2011 to UC Berkeley, the graduating journalism class, and he talked about horizontal loyalty. And once I read that speech, I was like, oh my God, someone just put a label to my life and my philosophy. A screen grab from the video that I requested Berkeley post. And I now own horizontaloyalty.com. I recommend you go over and watch the video. Don't do it now, wait till later. But the title of his speech was, There Are Some People Who Just Don't Wait. And he talked about the evolution of his journalism career, and he's talking about modern journalists right now not waiting their turn, not waiting for the New York Times to contact them, but instead looking at their colleagues and making something that they believe in, building something. We get courage from each other, we challenge each other, we support each other, we watch out for each other, we build something together. Old school way of thinking is, you versus me, I'm going to get that job and you're not. Hey, it's okay to be competitive. But remember, journalism is not about you versus me, but it's about informing our community. So let's build something together and support each other. You beat me on that. When you go into the competition, you lucky son of a... Freddy Krueger quote. Freddy Krueger quote. Good one, sir. You won this round, right? So it's very supportive, and that to me is how I roll. I've created lots of projects, but that theme is baked into all my work. This is something that I created 4 years ago called WJACC. Has anyone ever heard of it? It's okay, that's cool. I have temporary tattoos if there are any WJ chatters here who want them. But this is a weekly chat held on Twitter, Wednesdays at 5, with that hashtag. And I built that because I was alone in my office moving from Seattle to LA, not knowing anybody. I'm like, who's here? I want to nerd out about journalism and digital. And I attended something called Chat, which was more about PR, even though it's got a good name, bad PR is what I snarkily tweeted. And then people got onto that, and within 5 hours of the first host of this thing happened 4 years ago. And we do it every Wednesday. And this thing was a side project, and people are like, man, WJChat guy. And I'm like, yeah, I do other things. I'm sorry, that hashtag was a fluke. Like, relax, dude, I bust my ass over here. This is a side project. But I come to realize what a beautiful community this is. So much so, a couple years ago, you can't see this photo, but this guy from ASU, Jeremy Nope, was graduating, and on his cap, he put the WJChat logo. I never met this kid in real life. And enough for him to put that thing on his hat. Oh man, that's better than any award. That means I did something. So WJChat to me is aligned with the work that I do. All right, number 3. This is something I wrote not too long ago. This is my blog, and I should update it or redesign it. But one of the things I learned in my career is my bosses don't know what to do with me. They don't understand the words coming out of my mouth when I say, like, we need to, I'm messing around with Snapchat. I just downloaded Whisper. I'm trying to figure out how to communicate. And they're like, what? Who? Snapchat? That's sexting. Are you sexting? No. I'm communicating with pictures appropriately. And so my bosses my whole career never knew what to do with me. So I found that horizontal loyalty, before it was given a label, we were mentoring each other and supporting each other. And it's frustrating as hell. It's frustrating as hell. I just got profiled by Fast Company, and there was a quote in there that I had them correct because they had the time wrong. I used to pitch an idea to my boss, and they're like, I don't know what you're talking about, man. I'm like, oh, it's the future. Don't get it. 2 years later, they come back and be like, did you see what the New York Times just did? And like, oh, son, I told you that idea 2 years ago. And that happened time and time again. And I saw people just get burned out. They got burned out because they went to an internship and they had a bad editor. They went to an internship and didn't have a good time with the city. And journalism is tough. It's a calling. It's a life. So I wrote this thing where I was like, you got to make your own choices. But my plea to you is that you participate in journalism and hang in there as long as possible because it will work out. But it's not an abusive relationship. If you're done, move on. But there are other of us here still battling. I went to USC because I was like, no one understands what I'm doing except for my colleagues, but my bosses don't get me. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to mess with the system. I had someone from USC come to the Seattle Times newsroom, and they rolled out the red carpet for her to talk about web metrics. And I sat in the back going like, I've been telling you guys this for months. Why are you listening to me? I work here. And I'm like, that's the hustle. So when USC came, I'm like, all right, that's the hustle. Not only am I going to go there, but that's my back door to go back into my newsroom and empower people like me that were frustrated to be heard, but also educate the people who were dazzled by the tag USC professor and kind of educate them to prepare them to be better digital journalists. But then the other thing, my master plan. The first speech I gave to welcome the first grad class I had, I was inspired by Harvey Milk. I'm Harvey Milk, and I'm here to recruit you. And also, I'm a nerd, and I'm Robert Hernandez, I'm here to recruit you. I'm making, the Dumbledore Army? I'm making the Annenberg Army. And what I'm doing with all the work is recruiting the army that is this storm that is coming over journalism, that is saving it from itself, addressing the digital needs and remembering its roots. I'm a Google Glass Explorer. Neat. I got all this gear. Awesome. It's not about the gear. It's about the journalism. It's about the community I'm trying to inform. And that's what I'm trying to instill with people. And all those things come together, and my plea is to hang in there. It'll work out. It's worked out for me, and my God, I did everything possible not for it to work out. I'm really, really fortunate. And one day I was walking along campus, and I see off in a distance from a dorm this picture. And I'm like, the hell? And I take 3 more steps, and I see this. It's all a matter of perspective. So the last thing, in the conclusion, is what Amara said. Pay it forward. Don't forget your roots. I don't care if you end up at the New York Times. Don't forget where you came from. Don't forget where you came from and pay it forward. Just like all the names of the people who gave to me, I do everything possible to give back. I've smuggled people into conferences. I've gone to Keynote and Photoshop badges. I'm not sure I'm supposed to say that, especially if I'm recording this, but I did it. Someone opened the door for me, I opened the window and snuck everybody else in. Right? It does not matter what counter you're standing behind, whether you're on what side of the counter, whether it's the food court or the admissions, you have influence. Don't forget that. As a journalist, you have a responsibility. As a human being, support each other, educate each other, help each other out. And I ended up like, how do I end this? I don't know how to end this. So I just came up with this cheesy thing. I graphed Drake. I started from the bottom, now we're here, y'all. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. I'm happy to take questions. I'm going to have this playing in the background if I can.
Hello? All right, add this to the people on microphone. Anyone have a question?
Can someone hook me up with a glass of water?
Questions?
And for those worried, this is the radio version, so it's all right. Oh, thank you.
Anyone?
Questions? Come on, reporters.
Someone?
No? How to make mad money? In the journalism game?
First of all, I'd like to say thank you, because my mom serves pizza over a counter too.
Thank you.
So that, thank you. Teaching at USC, do your kids get it? Do your students get it? Do you have that same struggles as they were institutionalized with academia before they got to you?
It is a challenge.
What's the challenge in that?
So it's a bell curve. That's the thing. We're all diverse. We're all coming from different backgrounds. We're all different experiences. We're all shaped in a variety of different ways. When I grew up growing up in the Valley, people would come up to me and talk to me in Spanish, and I'd be like, why are you talking to me in Spanish? How do you know I speak Spanish? And as a young kid, you rejected your culture. I didn't realize what my parents went through and what I went through until I paid teachers in Yakima. It took that long, right? So I was a screw-up in college. I didn't know what I was going to do, but once I found journalism, I jumped in. Not everyone's fortunate like that. And you're going to hear people say, like, I knew I was going to be a journalist since I was 8. Oh, shit, who does that? I don't do that. I just luck, y'all. Total luck. So that's that bell curve. So I've got some folks who I'm just here because I need something to do, right? There's some of that. That's why I preach to be proactive. Don't waste your time. God, man, don't waste my time. But then I've got other people who are like, I'm down. I want to do this journalism stuff. I had my class, my intro to the digital class covers South LA. The first semester I taught it, I was like, all right, I want you to do an audio slideshow, audio story profiling someone in the community. And they came back with like profiling the sorority sister or the chef at their dorm or 21 choices frozen yogurt. And I was like, my God, what did I just do with my life? There goes my journalism cred right there. And when I got here, I was driving down the street, down Jefferson Avenue, looking over my shoulder, going like, look at this. What's the story about that building? Why is that church there and that church over there? There used to be a movie theater with a swap meet and an evangelical church. And I'm like, in the middle of the semester, I'm like, all right, game over, y'all. No friends, no family, no USC. 25 blocks along Jefferson. You pick a topic, you're going to do the rest of the semester telling me these stories. And that's how I freed my class ever since. And there's some students who are like, dude, this is South Central. I don't want to. And I'm like, oh, you're gonna. You're gonna. Welcome to journalism. I've had, for the most part, really fantastic. And it's not about race or background, it's just the thinking, the thought process behind it. So it is that bell curve of things. You've got some great students, you've got some not great students. Sometimes the brain boots up when they're the seniors or they study abroad. Study abroad if you can afford it. Get out of your comfort zone. Those are the folks. That's a pattern that I've seen, that if they go abroad, they start to see a different perspective. That's what happened with me serendipitously when I went to high school in El Salvador. I hated it the whole time. My mom still apologizes to me for dragging me down there, but it saved my life too. I was going to be a gangbanger, chances are. Except I never slicked my hair back, and I didn't like wearing khakis. I dressed like a surfer, even though I didn't surf. But I mean, so it's hard to do. So what I try to do is remember, being genuine and passionate. That's what my eval said. This guy is really passionate and he tells jokes. That's how I roll. Thank you for asking that question. Another question in the back? The hashtag is WJChat. Who's got a microphone? Is there another mic too? Okay. Let's jump around. Or why don't y'all line up? Get out of your seat and line up. And then we can pass the mic. I just did that. I just made that rule. And you guys are following it. Meanwhile, Dawson Creek is still dancing to silence. Hello.
Hi. Thank you for the great speech and very inspiring. I wanted to ask, there's a lot of, you were speaking about communities, especially minority communities. There's a lot of people in minority communities, immigrant communities, that are very apprehensive in being in the news, talking about their issues, talking to reporters. How do you overcome that challenge, and how do you teach that to your students?
So, thank you for that question. The second semester, I had that intro to online. I had moved, so my commute to campus was different. And I would drive through MacArthur Park, and I was driving like this, going like, what's the story? Who lives around here? What's that? And I saw a lady pushing a baby stroller. There ain't no baby in there. There was tamales she was hustling. And I'm like, I want to tell that story. And so I told my students, you're going to go to MacArthur Park. And they're like, but I'm scared. And I'm like, I don't care. Go during the day, be smart. And they went. And USC students in MacArthur Park, everyone's like, apparently MacArthur Park is the hookup for fake photo IDs. Yeah, you know hook us up? But it was so amazing. They got it. They fell in love with the place. Every semester, whatever neighborhood I picked, they know where to eat and what's up. And really fantastic stories. So I put them in that place, and I don't force them to go there, but it's the whole semester long. They're like, can I do something else? I can do one more store. I swear I won't be about frozen yogurt. It'll be something else. I'm like, no. You need to go there and build credibility, right? It doesn't matter if you got a journalism degree or not. It doesn't matter if you work for the New York Times or for out of your basement. What matters is your credibility. That's what makes a journalist, right? So in order for me, for a community that only knows a journalist or just news in general, the only time they ever meet someone is because someone got shot or killed or robbed or something bad happened, I'm sending my students there to kind of tell more positive stories. Tell me a good story. I want to know what's up. And so they go there, and they have to work with their sources. They become better reporters by working the sources. And they're like, they don't speak English. I'm like, figure it out. It's not good for my evals, but I give tips. There was one student, this grad student, that found a story about this kind of put together market where if you go to the liquor store, the only thing you can find there is an overpriced, moldy tomato as a vegetable. Or there's this pickup truck that rolls up, beat up, and he's got fresh from the farm vegetables, the sling and vegetables there. And she went there and she ran into a high school student who was like, I'll tell you what's up with the food here. And the high school student took her all over the place, took her to this secret marketplace that gets set up at 6 in the morning, and met a lady who was making, it wasn't pupusas, no, not tostadas, it was elote molido. They usually wrapped in a banana leaf. There was come with queso fresco. Kind of, but no. What is it? Not yuca. That's yuca. That's different from corn. Anyway, it was yummy. And she just got the hookup, and that was the gateway. This person vouched for her, right? That gave her the credibility. She transferred the credibility to this person, to this reporter. Why? Because the reporter was there and built that rapport. You're going to go to any newsroom, any city in the world, and someone's going to be like, who here has ever been interviewed by a reporter? Or like a professional reporter, okay? Now think of your aunt or uncle. How many times have they interacted with a journalist? They don't. So when you meet a when you meet your source, you're the first journalist they're ever meeting. You're going to define the expectation, the stereotype of what a journalist is. I will tell you, and I won't tell you, we should move on to other questions. But like I've been in situations where someone met me, they're like, oh, a journalist? And I'm like, all right, here we go. And I work them. And by the end of the conversation, they're like, I never knew journalists were not a-holes. I'm like, I can't speak for all of us. But I'm all right. Next question. Thank you.
Hello. You talked a little bit about interning and how hard it was for you to get an intern.
It's harder now, I feel like.
I actually wanted to ask you about freelancing, how you can set yourself apart, and what are some good tips to help you get there?
Sure. So a couple things that we take for granted, and every time I talk to journalists, they never think about SPJ, joining that as a student. You get mad discounts and scholarships. You don't have to raise your hand, but you can join me if you want. I did not apply for scholarships. It's one of my biggest regrets because I thought I wasn't good enough. I'm like, no, I gotta give it to somebody else. I'm not gonna make the cut. Made that mistake. I'm paying my student loans because of it. These are these organizations that are made for you. For you. We talk about, the industry talks about, we need to diversify. Check out the diversity in this room. And then one of those foolish individuals are going to say, I can't find a diverse journalist. Why do I find one of those? Dude, look around, open your eyes. But let's help them and help yourself along the way by becoming a member of these organizations. And you can go to these conferences where you meet recruiters. They pay for you to go. They pay your hotel, your flight, your room and board. And you get to meet and cover the conference, but then you meet folks there that leads to an internship. And then that leads to a job. Freelancing, that's a hustle. I'm not going to lie. Real talk makes me nervous. I'm very grateful that you have to have a certain skill set for that. You have to have a thicker skin to get rejected, and you have to hustle and network. But, pro tip for everything to kind of stand apart, everyone is trying to stand apart. But what else are you doing? One, you need to communicate that you're passionate. And so I used to say, I'm passionate about journalism. I got a fire in my belly. I'm ready. I was genuine. I meant it. But so what? Prove it. We're reporters. We're cynical bastards. So how do you prove it? Write for yourself and tell stories of your community, whether or not it's for your publication or for your professor. So have a blog, have a website. You can do it for free if you have some money. It costs about $80 a month, $80 a year, not a month, a year. Have a social media presence. Who is on Twitter? Who's on Twitter and hates Twitter? Who's on Twitter and loves Twitter? Where my nerds at? Yes, thank you for tweeting. That's part of our real life right now, that kind of tool. So you want to have a presence. You want to create content. We're different from typical civilians as journalists. We're creating and generating content all the time. So that's amplifying our digital footprint. But it could be all over the place. So you want to put it on one spot on the web where you control the narrative of the story, right? If you don't have any money, check out pressfolios.com. It's like portfolios, but press. I gave them advice. It changed their website, and it's made for us. Your digital clips online. That's a place where you can start putting all your clips and start pointing people there. Lots of different options out there. But you have to, it's your work. Your work makes a difference. The other thing that makes a difference, great, you're talented. So is everybody else, is who you know, right? You got a network. How do you network? These journalism conferences. You go there, you connect with people, and the connections with people get your foot in the door, and your work keeps you in the room. That's the trick. Yes? you. I thought you guys were going to laugh at me for a bit, so thank you. How do I feel about the media today? It's full of sinners and saints. It's not perfect, but I'm doing my part to make it better. And instead of like rolling my eyes, I hold it accountable. I call bullshit. I tell my friends, hey, that's not good. But I also amplify what is good. We define what that is, but you also have to understand some of it is just business. So you can't blame them for side boob watch from the Huffington Post, because there are dudes clicking on that, and that's money for them. That's not the journalism I ever want to do. So I'm not going to work for that publication. They do good journalism too. And that's the game that we're in right now, right? So you've got to find what's good for you. Make sure you're not just consuming media that just agrees with you. If you're doing that, you're missing the freaking point. As for those who follow people on Twitter, find people that you disagree with. Find people that enlighten you, like, oh snap, I never thought about it that way. That's going to make you a better person. That's the point of journalism. That's what's the First Amendment. It's protected so we can have a dialogue. So is it perfect? God, it breaks my heart. I usually blame cable TV, but you know, it's a lot of sinners in there. But I'm doing my part to make it better, and you guys should. Thank you.
I just want to say I really appreciate taking the time out of your day to come here and talk to us. I think what you're doing is awesome, and you're Latino, so that makes it more awesome.
Thank you.
And since
I had nothing to do with it. Thanks, my parents.
you're born Latino,
I'm in. All right.
But since we mentioned what our parents did, my dad is a carnicero. He sells meat over the counter as well. And what I wanted to ask you was, what has been the most fulfilling and like your best achievement so far, and what are your goals for the future?
Oh man, this is up there, and I'm telling you, I'm not kidding. This is up there. They're just different stages in life, and I sound like an old guy. I swear, I'm sorry, because I was there and I'm like, shut up, old guy. But they're different things. So for me, it's moments of enlightenment, right? So I went and picked peaches, and then afterwards I realized they're doing what my dad did. Now, I didn't grow up poor or anything like that. My dad was, I'll share this. My dad came over illegally in the 70s. My mom came over legally. My dad became a citizen and became a mechanic, owned his own shop for 35 years on the corner of Lindley and Saticoy in Reseda. Raphael's Auto Repair. He drank a lot because he dealt with stress and he didn't want to deal with his problems, and he drank a lot and got abusive. Sharing too much, but let's be real. We went to, so he made a lot of money at one point, and then he lost all the money, including his house and his shop. So I've lived both lives. I'm like, man, I'm in a suburb, and I'm going to a Catholic private school. And then I went to El Salvador, and I lived in the neighborhood where they would drop off stolen cars. So I lived both lives. But I didn't appreciate it because you're a punk when you're growing up. It's college that makes you realize all this stuff. It puts it in context. And I look at my 5-year-old and I'm like, you little punk, you'll thank me later. I'm damn sure you're going to thank me later. So one of the biggest was picking peaches and having that epiphany. And just, all right, I'll tell you this one story. I was telling you this earlier. I take speech class 3 times until I passed. I'm usually kind of quiet in the corner. People drag me by my shirt collar. I'm not even exaggerating, literally to meet people, to network. There was this time I was working for the Chronicle, SF Gate. It was the 25th anniversary of AIDS. And I wanted to do a project, and they asked me to do the design for it, the coding for it. So I went to the Chronicle and I sat down, and they all started pitching, how are we going to honor the 25th? And all the stories were about gay white males. And I'm like, where's the diversity here? And actually, there's a stat I heard that the fastest growing demographic is straight black females getting AIDS. No, I'm just a web kid. I don't know. They're the grown-ups. They know what's up. And then I heard the last name that had a Z, and I'm like, okay, there was a doctor with a Z in it. All right, I don't have to say anything. The package came out, all about gay white males. And I was like, I fucked up. I missed the responsibility that was put on me. And I made a pact with myself that I will speak up every time that I'm there. So that was a big moment. And that started to show up in my career, where there was a story where right before the latest Gulf War, the draft, is the draft going to come back? So the editors were like, we're talking to high school teachers, we're talking to military recruiters, we're talking to parents, and I'm sitting in the corner going like, why aren't y'all talking to high schoolers who are going to get drafted? And I'm like, I guess I have to ask this awkward question. And I asked the question, and they're like, oh yeah. Like, things that might be obvious to you because of your experience and your upbringing in your community, you got to represent that and own that. And know, here's what I know. I know that my Latino community has been excluded, so I got to make sure everybody else who tends to be excluded, they're on my shoulders too. So that was a big moment for me. A lot of them, but it's really realizing, just how fortunate I was for that. I didn't even think about that person behind the counter at Pierce College until I started working at USC. Like, I didn't think about my mom serving pizza until I started working at USC. Not because of USC, but just to see the other side and go like, holy shit, I'm a professor here. I don't think they did a background check. I don't know how I got in here, but I'm here and I'm going to stay here until they kick me out, and I'm going to take you all with me. I'm going to educate you guys. So that's been pretty rad. Yes, sir.
Thank you. And congratulations.
Thank you.
So you're from Annenberg, where journalism and communications are combined.
Yes.
Can you talk about them individually and the advantage of them, of those individually?
Sure.
And, what you think has a brighter future?
Has a what?
Brighter future.
Brighter future. So Annenberg is an everything school. It's got grad and undergrad programs. It's got one half of the house is comm, which is more like the analytical, academic side of the impact of a message. What does a message mean? From advertising to pop culture to a headline to video. Then the other side of the house is journalism. But actually, that house is divided in two. One is journalism and one is PR. And we're about 50-50. Everything has a future. And I'm not going to hate on one or the other. One might not pay you better than the other, but who's doing journalism for the money? You're in the wrong business. But for the record, when I was starting out, I would have said the same thing. It's not about the money. If you want a 9-to-5 job with money, go be a banker. This is a lifestyle choice that I made. The AP style book is my Bible. I spell out the word percent. I'm still upset about the more than and over situation that just happened. And then you're wrong. Right? So this is who I am. When someone comes up and gives me a petition, I'm like, I can't sign that. I'm a journalist. This is the lifestyle I chose. And for other people, PR could be a calling. It's just what you want it to be. This is where it all lined up for me. All of it is a future. For those, we're in journalism, right? So journalism. You hear all this shitstorm of like, oh, journalism is dying. No. Journalism will never, ever, ever go away. Newspapers might, but journalism, informing your community, will always be there. Because when someone wants to know gossip, someone's going to be there with the facts. That's what we do. Hey, should I eat at the restaurant? Well, let me tell you, that got a health violation. But that's what we do. We inform our community. And that will, as long as they're human beings, there'll be journalism.
All right, we're short on time, so last question.
Last question. No pressure. Don't mess it up. We're all looking at you. Keep it real. Keep it real. Come on, for Dawson Creek.
Hello from the Roundup.
Hey, the Roundup. Roundup. I will use a quick story for your question. I was in El Salvador at the airport, had a Roundup t-shirt, and a guy was like, I did the Roundup too. And I'm like, please tell me you have a job. Please tell me you have a job. He's like, I have a job in a magazine. I'm like, yes. We're internationally known. Yes, sir.
For someone so afraid of public speaking, you seem to be able to think with feet.
Thank you.
Sure.
A lot of training and fear and adrenaline.
Yeah, which I think is my main drawback. I get taking what comes to me. I get maybe a path where there is, but not so much staying centered on assignment. How do you remember where you came from while you're writing a story?
So you're talking about like roots came from, or what your goal is for the story?
Or moral, I guess.
Or what?
Like where you came from as in stay centered and on assignment at the same time. The media is a very loud room today, and it's hard and it's easy to be distracted.
Sure.
How do you stay focused?
How do you stay focused? So what I preach is a couple things. I preach a lot of things. The most important thing that I preach is be genuine, right? So when you're interviewing someone, Don't think about all these other things. Be genuine. Be present. Ask a question. I was talking to someone today. She's like, I write down all the questions and then I write down the potential answers because I want to be prepared for how it's going to go down. And then that's what happens. She goes to an interview. None of that happens, right? And then she's like, but my next question. And I'm like, no, you got to be in the moment. Be curious, genuinely curious. You got a responsibility. This person gave you time of their life, some time out of their busy life to tell you their story. Don't screw that up. Spell their name correctly. Get that quote right. But be genuinely interested. Be curious about the topic. I don't care what the topic is. Find an angle that makes you curious about it. And just have an engaging conversation. That helps your journalism, and it comes through the content, right? So think of all the folks, and who is your audience? Don't just write because it's cool. Write with purpose. That's the second thing. It's my mantra, with purpose. I like this website because it's pretty. Hell no, that's not I went with this one because it's nice. No, never do Comic Sans. With purpose, right? So are you going to solve the world's problem with your story? No, but you're not going to make it worse because you're doing your part. So I don't know if that answers your question, but let's end on that. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. I watched HBO. I'm mixed on that. And oh. I've been doing music journalism as a freshman in high school and started shooting bands, local bands and stuff. I'm working for a publication at Wall Rock Live. It's pretty big, but I'm still trying to get myself out there, either as furthering myself as a music journalist or going further in and doing public relations in the music industry. What advice would you have for me? I tweet a lot. Yeah.
Engage with people, engage with music journalists that you admire and that you care about.
Yeah.
There's the AAN, the Association of News Organizations and News Media, crash that conference. That's
Oh, very nice. Very good. Yes, let me pack up my stuff. Thank you.
No, I didn't do that. I don't believe I did that. What I did for the roundup, I was the go-to paste up guy. Which is funny because I usually have shaky hands, but I did the paste up with the wax.